Chapter 1. A Crazy Trip to the Ex-Korean Medicine Clinic. Yo, dude, you won't believe what happened when I visited the Ex-Korean Medicine Clinic. I blurted out to my best friend Josh as we grabbed some greasy burgers at our usual hangout spot. The fluorescent lights flickered above us, casting a jittery glow over the sticky red and white checkered tables. Why? What happened? Josh asked, his mouth full of fries. I nearly got a heart attack, man. There was like a legit panic going on. People got infected there, bro. Things really hit the fan, I said, shaking my head. Comments were blowing up on the forums about it. No way, dude. Are you serious? Josh said, eyes wide as he wiped his greasy fingers on his jeans. Yeah, totally. Check it out, I said, pulling up the forum on my phone and showing him the string of comments. Look at what people are saying. Josh squinted at the screen, scrolling through the comments. Jesus, I think we went not too long ago, he muttered, his face paling a bit. Yeah, we did. It's crazy, right? Like, how could things go so wrong? I said, shuddering at the thought. I dunno, man. That place always seemed kinda sketch to me. Remember that one time they gave me some weird herbal stuff that made me puke? Josh said, leaning back in his chair. Yeah, dude. I thought that was just you being a wuss, but now I'm not so sure, I said, laughing nervously. Hey, careful with that wuss talk. I'm just more sensitive, all right, Josh said, punching me lightly on the arm. Sure. Sensitive, I teased, but my mind was still reeling from the forum comments. Chapter 2. The Downfall of Dr. Jin. Meanwhile, across town, Dr. Jin, the head of the Ex-Korean Medicine Clinic, was having the worst day of his life. He sat in his small, cluttered office, staring at his computer screen in disbelief. Why are there more and more confirmed cases from my place, huh? And why do these *** calls keep posting this crap on the forums? He shouted, slamming his fist on the desk. Dr. Jin had never imagined that his dream of running a successful clinic would turn into such a nightmare. He had spent years in medical school, only to find himself buried under a mountain of debt just 3 years after opening his clinic. Why did COVID have to hit right after I launched my clinic? He groaned, rubbing his temples. As he ranted and raved, a strange sensation washed over him. He suddenly felt dizzy, and the room started to spin. Whoa, why is the sky under me? He mumbled before everything went black. When Dr. Jin came to, he found himself in a completely different place. The cold, sterile environment of his office was replaced by ornate, medieval decor. He blinked, trying to make sense of his surroundings. Where am I? He wondered aloud. Chapter 3. Welcome to the fantasy. Dr. Jin's confusion deepened when a man in elaborate, old-fashioned clothing rushed to his side. Your Highness, can you see me? The man asked, tears streaming down his face. Who are you, sir? Dr. Jin stammered, still trying to process what was happening. Gee goodness, it can't be. Are you unable to recognize me? Nevertheless, I will serve you until the end. For I, Piero Garden, will always remain your faithful physician, the man declared dramatically. What is this Chef Boyardee saying to me right now? Dr. Jin thought, bewildered. Excuse me, but could you get me a glass of what? He began, but before he could finish, Piero was already at his side with a gilded goblet filled with water. He's fast, Dr. Jin muttered, taking the goblet and gulping down the water. Wait a second, this isn't a hospital. As he looked around, he noticed the lavish decorations and the medieval attire of everyone around him. This seems like I'm on a set for a medieval TV show, he thought, but everything felt too real. Your Highness, Piero exclaimed, his face filled with concern. Stop calling me that. And why are you crying, mister? Dr. Jin demanded. Who are you, sir? Dr. Jin asked, his mind racing. This is too much. I'm the crown prince from the novel. No way. But if that's true, then all my debts are gone. Dr. Jin thought, a strange sense of relief washing over him. Chapter 4. The Crown Prince's Dilemma? Am I really Lachiel? If that's true, then the unimaginable debt and interest I racked up after my medical clinic toppled over is all gone. Dr. Jin mused, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. But his relief was short-lived. Wait, if I'm Lachiel, Then I only have a year left to live, he thought, panic rising in his chest. He remembered reading the web novel Emperor of the Runeblade before heading out for a drink that fateful afternoon. In the novel, Lachiel, the sickly crown prince, succumbed to a chronic illness at the age of 22. There's one thing I know for sure about Lachiel: he had access to the finest medical care available from the imperial court. Yet, when all else failed, he turned to the clergy and their countless blessings. But in the end, he succumbed to the illness, Dr. Jin recalled. This leaves me with only one choice, he decided. Piero. Yes, Your Highness, Piero responded, bowing deeply. I need you to procure some needles for me. The size doesn't matter, but fetch as many as you can, Dr. Jin ordered. Merely out of curiosity, what do you plan to do with them? Piero asked, his voice trembling. I'm going to poke my body a bit, Dr. Jin said, a determined look in his eyes. What? Please say it isn't so, Piero exclaimed, horrified. Chapter 5. The Path to Survival. Ignoring Piero's protests, Dr. Jin carefully examined his new body. He could feel the symptoms of bradyarrhythmia and tachyarrhythmia, along with a host of other ailments. Talk about next-level absurdity, he muttered, rolling his eyes. Piero soon returned with an armful of needles, each one more intimidating than the last. I brought all the needles, just like you asked, sire, he said, panting heavily. Thank you, Piero. Lay them down on my bed, Dr. Jin instructed, eyeing the oversized needles warily. What do you plan to do with them? Piero asked again, his concern evident. I'm going to save my body, no matter what, Dr. Jin replied, a steely determination in his voice. With practiced precision, he began to insert the needles into his body, targeting specific meridian points. Despite the pain, he focused on stabilizing his breathing and calming his erratic heart. First, the Jungbu point, then Unman, and Xianbu, he murmured, feeling a small spark of hope as he worked. Dianji, your body has received a pleasant stimulus thanks to your precise acupuncture. The function of your internal organs has slightly recovered. Your lungs are starting to become active, a voice announced, startling Dr. Jin. He glanced around, confused. Are these supposed to be my mascots or something? He wondered, noticing the small glowing figures hovering around him. Huh, he exclaimed, the absurdity of the situation hitting him once again. Despite the strangeness of it all, Dr. Jin felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to save his new body and survive, no matter what it took. Chapter 6. Adjusting to a New Reality. Over the next few days, Dr. Jin immersed himself in his new life as Crown Prince Lachiel. He studied the novel's events and characters, trying to piece together a plan for his survival. Piero remained by his side, ever loyal and attentive. Your Highness, you must rest. Your body is still weak, he would say, his concern evident in his eyes. I know, Piero, but I need to understand everything about this world if I'm going to survive, Dr. Jin replied, poring over ancient texts and scrolls. Despite his determination, he couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief at his situation. I went from being a broke doctor to a crown prince in a fantasy novel. Life sure has a way of throwing curveballs, he thought, shaking his head. As he adjusted to his new reality, Dr. Jin discovered that his medical knowledge and skills were incredibly valuable in this world. He began treating the ailments of those around him, earning their admiration and respect. Your Highness, you truly are a divine healer, people would say, their eyes filled with awe. Yeah, something like that, Dr. Jin would reply, a wry smile on his lips. But despite his growing reputation, he never lost sight of his primary goal: to survive and avoid the fate that awaited him in the novel. Chapter 7. Unraveling the Mystery. One evening, as Dr. Jin was studying a particularly ancient and cryptic scroll, Piero entered the room, looking more serious than usual. Your Highness, there is something you must know, he said, his voice grave. What is it, Piero? Dr. Jin asked, setting the scroll aside. There have been rumors, whispers among the servants and nobles. They speak of a hidden cure for your illness, Piero said, his eyes filled with hope. A hidden cure? Why hasn't anyone mentioned this before? Dr. Jin asked, his curiosity piqued. It is said to be a closely guarded secret, known only to the highest-ranking members of the clergy. They call it the elixir of life, Piero explained. Elixir of life, huh? Sounds like something straight out of a fairy tale, Dr. Jin mused. But if there's even a chance that it could save me, I have to find it? Piero nodded. I will do everything in my power to assist you, Your Highness. With renewed determination, Dr. Jin set out on a quest to uncover the truth about the elixir of life. He delved into ancient texts, consulted with scholars, and even ventured into the forbidden archives of the palace. Chapter 8. The journey begins. As word of his quest spread, Dr. Jin found himself surrounded by a small but loyal group of allies. Among them were a brilliant young scholar named Leora, a skilled warrior named Kale, and a mysterious rogue named Aaron. Are you sure about this, Your Highness? The journey will be perilous, and the path to the elixir of life is fraught with danger, Leora warned, her eyes filled with concern. I appreciate your worry, Leora, but I have no choice. I refuse to let this illness dictate my fate, Dr. Jin replied, his resolve unshaken. Together, the group set out on their journey, facing countless trials and tribulations along the way. They traversed treacherous mountains, navigated dense forests, and battled fierce creatures that seemed to have stepped right out of a nightmare. Through it all, Dr. Jin's medical skills proved invaluable. He treated wounds, cured illnesses, and even saved lives, earning the unwavering loyalty of his companions. Your Highness, you truly are a divine healer, Kale said one evening as they sat around a campfire. Yeah, well, I just do what I can, Dr. Jin replied, feeling a sense of pride and purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. Chapter 9. The Hidden Temple. After months of arduous travel, the group finally reached their destination, a hidden temple nestled deep within a forgotten valley. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the temple's ancient stone walls seemed to hum with power. This is it, Dr. Jin said, his heart pounding in his chest. The elixir of life must be here. As they ventured deeper into the temple, they encountered numerous traps and puzzles, each one more challenging than the last. But with teamwork and determination, they overcame every obstacle that stood in their way. At last, they reached the innermost chamber, where a glowing crystal vial sat atop a pedestal. The air around it seemed to shimmer with an ethereal light. Is this the elixir of life? Leora whispered, her eyes wide with awe. Dr. Jin approached the pedestal, his hands trembling as he reached for the vial. This has to be it, he said, his voice filled with hope. As he held the vial in his hands, he could feel its power coursing through him. This is it. This is what will save me, he thought, a sense of relief washing over him. Chapter 10. The Final Test. But just as Dr. Jin was about to drink the elixir, a figure appeared before them, cloaked in darkness. Who dares to seek the elixir of life? The figure demanded, its voice echoing through the chamber. I am Lachiel, Crown Prince of this land, and I seek the elixir to save my life, Dr. Jin declared, standing tall despite the fear gnawing at his insides. The figure laughed, a cold, hollow sound that sent shivers down their spines. Very well, Lachiel, but know this, the elixir is not simply a cure. It is a test, one that will challenge the very essence of your being. Are you prepared to face it? Dr. Jin swallowed hard, his resolve unwavering. I am. With a nod, the figure stepped aside, allowing Dr. Jin to drink the elixir. As the liquid touched his lips, he felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. His vision blurred, and he felt himself being pulled into a whirlwind of light and sound. Chapter 11. The Trial of the Elixir. When the whirlwind subsided, Dr. Jin found himself standing in a vast, empty void. Before him stood a mirror, and within it he saw his reflection, not as Lachiel, but as Dr. Jin, the struggling doctor from the ex-Korean medicine clinic. Who are you, really? A voice echoed through the void. I am both, Dr. Jin replied, realizing that his journey had been about more than just survival. It had been about discovering who he truly was and what he was capable of. As he spoke, the mirror began to crack, and the void around him started to dissolve. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that he had faced the trial and emerged stronger for it. When he awoke, he was back in the temple, surrounded by his companions. The elixir's vial was empty, and he could feel its power coursing through his veins. "Your Highness, are you all right?" Piero exclaimed, rushing to his side. "I'm fine, Piero," Dr. Jin said, smiling. And I think I'm going to be okay." Chapter 12. A New Beginning. With the elixir's power, Dr. Jin's health was fully restored. He no longer felt the weight of his chronic illness, and his body was stronger than ever. His companions rejoiced, celebrating their hard-earned victory. As they made their way back to the palace, Dr. Jin couldn't help but reflect on his journey. He had faced countless challenges, made new friends, and discovered a strength within himself that he never knew existed. Upon their return, Dr. Jin was greeted as a hero. The people hailed him as a divine healer, and his reputation grew even further. But more importantly, he had earned the respect and admiration of those closest to him. "Your Highness, you have done what many thought impossible. You have truly proven yourself to be a great leader and healer," Leora said, her eyes filled with pride. "Thank you, Leora. I couldn't have done it without all of you," Dr. Jin replied, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. As he settled into his new life, Dr. Jin made a vow to himself. He would use his knowledge and skills to help others, just as he had done in his previous life. And he would cherish every moment, knowing that he had been given a second chance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Dr. Jin embraced his role as Lachiel, Crown Prince and Divine Healer. And as he looked out over the kingdom, he knew that his journey was far from over. There were still many challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them, knowing that he was stronger and wiser for all that he had endured. Epilogue. A Tale of Two Worlds. Back in the modern world, the news of the ex-Korean medicine clinic's misfortune had spread far and wide. But for those who had known Dr. Jin, they couldn't help but wonder what had become of him. "Hey, had you heard anything about Dr. Jin?" Josh asked one day as he and his friends sat at their usual hangout spot. "Nah, man, he just disappeared. Some say he went on a journey to find himself," one of their friends replied. "Yeah, maybe. I just hope he's okay," Josh said, looking out the window with a wistful expression. Little did they know, Dr. Jin's journey had taken him to a world beyond their imagination, and as he continued to make a difference in his new life, he carried with him the memories of his past and the lessons he had learned along the way. In the end, Dr. Jin's tale was one of resilience, discovery, and the enduring power of hope. And though his journey had taken him to a world of fantasy, the impact he had on both worlds would be felt for generations to come. As the sun set over the kingdom, Dr. Jin stood on the palace balcony, gazing out at the horizon. He knew that his story was far from over, and that new adventures awaited him just beyond the next bend. And with a smile, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held. For he was not just a doctor or a prince, but a healer of worlds, and his journey had only just begun.